We're here with a meeting of the Naples Daily News Editorial Board, and John Sorey, who's a candidate for re-election as mayor of Naples. We want to invite folks to go and watch the video of our debate that we held the other night with the three mayoral candidates. In the course of that debate, we covered a lot of the issues for all three candidates, and some of what you'll hear today are questions specifically for the candidates, and we'll do that with each of the three. So let's go ahead and start, John, if we could. Tell us a little bit about how long you've been in Naples and where you came from.
Great. Thanks for the question. First off, thanks for the opportunity to be here, and I look forward to our discussion. Obviously, the endorsement is a critical item, and I look forward to your consideration. I've been in Naples, first came in 1979, visiting, had a cousin that had a condo on Gulf Shore North, and then we bought a condo, and then we bought an old house in Old Naples in '92, and in '98, when I sold my last company, we knocked that down and built our new house. And so we've been here full time since '98. My background is I'm a first generation college graduate. I had to work to go to school, pay my way. My family didn't have many resources, so I worked and got scholarships, and I was an ROTC officer. After graduation, went to Fort Benning, went through Officers Basic, and then out to Fort Riley, Kansas, and the worst job I've ever had. When I got to Fort Riley, I was a junior second lieutenant, so I became the survival assistance officer. So for about 90 days, I had to go tell wives and families that their son or husband had been killed in Vietnam. So no day in Vietnam was as bad as those days. So I ended up having 50-some families that I interacted with, either I inherited or had to tell firsthand. So that was a difficult time. Then I got back from Vietnam, got into manufacturing and distribution, worked for a lot of companies, turnaround workouts, buying and selling companies, taking companies public. In '98, sold my last company and came to Naples and built a new house. And as Dolores tells the story, she didn't need me to help run the house, so she said, you need to find something to do. So I got involved in the city, in the nonprofit area, and in the City of Naples Public Advisory Board, Planning Advisory Board, and then ran for council, served 2 terms as council, and had the honor of serving the last 4 years as mayor.
We've seen on the city council, we've seen three of the members endorse one of your opponents. You have two of the other members running against you, and we have one who's fallen into your camp. Why is it you think that you don't have the backing of the city council in your re-election?
Right, I think that's a fair question, and I think that's predicated by somewhat leadership style. You know, the fact is that I have high expectations. I try to move things along, so I think some of the council members feel like maybe I'm a little too aggressive. I try to get things done. I think if you look at a little broader perspective, you know, I've got Fred Coyle, a former commissioner and former council member that's endorsed me. I've got Bill McIlvain. I've got, of course, Sam Sott, as we mentioned. I've got Commissioner Henning. I've got a number of mayors that I work with on the Florida League of Mayors. So, and I don't think that's a critical issue. I think the critical issue is where are we going, what's our vision, what are we going to get done, and there's a lot to do going forward, and I think I'm the best choice to move the city forward and accomplish what we need to do.
What are some of those things you want to get done that need to be done?
Absolutely. Well, the most important thing is to maintain the Naples brand. We fortunately were just selected as the happiest and healthiest city in the country, and that doesn't come easy. The thing that we need to do is to focus on what got us here and be sure we protect those. And I think if you look at what I have done, it's pretty clear that I have that capability. So one of the key things are the beaches. You know, if you look at the record, I'm the only person on council that served on the Coastal Advisory Committee, was chair for several years, had a successful beach renourishment, had the ability to get that done. A lot of opposition, 4-3 vote on council, and I think that's one of the things that council members don't like when I push things through, but that's something we had to do. We need to protect the beaches. We look at connectivity, being able to safely walk or ride a bike from Gulf Shore all the way to the Gordon River Greenway through Baker Park. Unfortunately, Baker Park's become a bit of a political issue, and I'm committed to getting it done. You've seen the numbers. We now have H2 plan, which is important to move forward from a site development standpoint. And the question is, who's the best mayor to get the park built? We've been talking about this park for 25 years. I don't think any of the other candidates can raise the money privately that we need to finish. It looks like now that based on the current numbers, although I think they're a little bit inflated, but we're probably $3 to $5 million short of what we need. Unfortunately, haven't had much support. Been able to raise about $5.5 million so far, and that's going to be required going forward. And we've got some council members that don't think that the mayor or council members should raise money privately. I strongly disagree with that. So it's something we've got to also focus on. Traffic and what's the future of Naples. One of the challenges that we have, we are the ultimate destination for the whole county, and I get criticism and comments about too many tourists. Well, the reality is it's not tourists. We had about 1.8 million tourists last year spread over the entire year. So when you look at tourism, you know, that's not the numbers. The numbers are in the seasonal individuals that here part-time, either in the city but mostly in the county. So the county has a big impact. So what I'm doing to try to react appropriately on that is talking to the county commissioners about activity nodes out in the county. How do we preclude the need for everyone to come down here? And especially if you look at what's going to happen eventually, and we thought we'd be at 500,000 people now, but the recession took care of that. But at some point in time, we're going to have 800,000 to 900,000 people in Collier County, and the city can't continue to do all of the things for the entire county. So activity nodes out in the county where we have entertainment venues, where we have other kinds of activities. One of the big challenges is going to be beaches, because we're not making any more beach ends. And how do we cope with the number? If you look at beach permits, the city has about 6,000, the county has over 100,000. And every time we do a survey, 60 to 70% of our beach end users are county residents, not visitors. I guess they could be visitors with Collier County stickers, but that's kind of unusual. But at any rate, those are all of the things. How do we provide a balance about what's best for the city? But at the same time, we've got to appreciate the economic impact of visitors and county residents, because when I first started coming here in '79, we didn't have the cultural or the restaurants that we have now. And so it's always a balance. How do we maintain the Naples brand without impacting the quality of life for our city residents?
You talk about making decisions, pushing things through, and so forth. Are there any decisions that you've made here in the last year or so that you regret making or wish you could do over?
Well, obviously, recently, I probably could have used better judgment as far as moving the signs at the Naples Plaza Shopping Center. I thought I had every legal right to do that, and would appear after some additional research that I did have the legal right, but it doesn't make any difference. It could have been handled better. So that's one. The second thing, I probably, with what I know now, maybe would have tried to approach Baker Park a little bit different. Unfortunately, we've had a year now of really little progress on Baker Park because of the political environment. We'd had 4-3 votes to move that forward, and then it switched and it went 4-3. But we're now refocused on that, and we'll get the park built, and it's critical that we address some of those issues. And I've built buildings and done a lot of things where my other council members have not done so. So the sequencing of whether you do the site work and the engineering at this point or you do it later is not overly material. So, but at any rate, I think maybe I would try to do Baker Park different, but 90% of the decisions, I think they've been good decisions. And the reality is, and I know there's been some allegations about the executive authority of the mayor. Well, the reality is there are no executive authority aspects of the mayor. So anything we've done has been a 4-3 vote in some cases, but it always has been 4 votes of council. So the mayor has no, as per the charter, has no executive authority. So anything I've accomplished, it's been a team effort, it's been a consensus. And another item that's had some noise associated with it is the landscaping on Gulf Shore Boulevard North. Well, the reality is that both all 3 of the city council or the mayor candidates voted for that. But because I am mayor, you know, I stood up and I didn't throw GSAC under the bus, which would have been easy to do because the communications wasn't there. But I went up, took my licks, put a group together, and moved forward to rectify that situation. And the great majority of the people that didn't see it when it was cleared for planning have come back and said, I think it looks great, and that sort of thing. But again, that's another one of those items that's gotten pulled into this political noise that we're currently faced with.
Mayor, is there an issue, something that you believe that it's worth tackling as you seek your another term that has to do with historic preservation? There's always this talk about what do we do because all these homes are being built or torn down? Address some of that.
Yeah, that's a great question, and the reality, and coming from other parts of the country, you know, I think historic preservation is important. Early on, when I was on council, we had that discussion, and the property owners said, we don't want anything that will reduce the value of our properties. So I continue to work, and that's the other thing, is you look at the other candidates, you know, just look at, and I see you guys places, so look at what I have been involved with. You know, I'm involved with Elaine Reed at the Historical Society about how do we do that. We can't do it like we did last time because the property owner said, no way. But maybe we can do some kind of, it's not going to be like a Georgetown and that sort of thing, but maybe we could do some modification. And we did take some action after the brick building was torn down close to the beach because everybody was surprised. So you have to give notice now and that sort of thing. But unfortunately, most of our property owners are not particularly supportive of anything that reduces the value of their property.
You mentioned the need for balance. Is there a balance that you have to find when you talk about also fundraising, and you're perfectly all right with the mayor raising funds, but at what point is it John Sorey for the good of the city asking for money? What point does it become the mayor insinuating that somebody might be better off if they gave a donation to the city? How do you strike that balance?
And absolutely. And I think if you talk to anybody that I've had any discussions with, both for contributions to anything, and it's not just you know, Baker Park. You know, I've been involved with the zoo, the conservancy, the library, Friends of the Library, on and on. You know, if again, look at the track record and the skill set. I've been on more boards, have done more for this community than any other individual, and probably if you look back at the history of the mayors, probably more than any mayor. But to answer your question, anybody, and I've never and would never, in fact, if anybody came to me and said, look, I'm willing to make a contribution, but I need your help here, I would not only not do that, but I would report that. I have never had any discussion of a quid pro quo as far as that situation is concerned. So that's just not something that I would do or believe in. So I think I do it for the good of the city and for the good of the organization. And if somebody thinks that $1,000 that they give me for a campaign contribution is going to affect my decision, then they shouldn't be supporting me, because that's not how I work.
One of the things that was sort of put out there at the end of the forum the other night is that John Sorey acts, but he doesn't listen. Can you respond to that?
Sure. I think that's, again, when you can't compete on substance, you have to try to attack the candidate. And I fully expect, as a sitting mayor, to be attacked. I think it'll get worse. I'm a little disappointed, because I thought we had a gentleman's agreement that we weren't going to get into that sort of thing. And I don't have to tell this room, you know what's going on, you know the political noise and that sort of thing. So I do think I'll listen. I attend 200 events a year. Because I may not agree with a person, that doesn't mean that I'll listen. I've spent my whole life, and my business success was predicated by listening to my stakeholders, my customers, my employees, my suppliers, and that's exactly the way. And obviously, I don't know much about politics. I always say I'm an elected official. I know a little bit about business, and I try to approach the mayor's role and trying to help manage the city, just like I've always approached business. What's the objective? What's best for, in this case, the city? How do we build a coalition to accomplish that? And one of the things you learn early on, every time you make a decision, you make some people happy, you make some people unhappy. So I think this is another part of the political noise. All of you know me. We've had lots of discussions together, and if you don't think I listen, I'd be surprised, because I do listen.
A few moments ago, you were going over some of the things that you would do over. One of the things you did not mention there was your trip to China in 2015. Yeah. Is that something you would do over again?
Absolutely not. I would go, maybe possibly the product, I might have brought that forth differently. But again, I think this is political noise. I have had the request and opportunity to probably take 10, 15 trips. Everybody wants to have a sister city with the city of Naples. I hadn't felt that was economically justified. I've been requested to come to Italy, other China groups and that sort of thing. And again, I haven't felt it was justified. Serving on the Florida League of Mayors, I've had pressure put on me to attend the National League of Cities. I do attend the Florida League of Cities. Again, I hadn't felt that was good economic investment for the city. But I do feel like, and if I had it to go over, I would go again. I do feel like that Mr. Young is a major potential for the city of Naples. If you know about the Chinese culture, there are several aspects. One, you don't do business with people until you really get to know them. I resisted. I had been requested and probably pressured a bit to go to see him for a couple years. And until I really felt that he was legitimate, that and you probably know most of the wealthy Chinese want to get some money out of the country, invest it here, and I forgot the number, whatever the visa number is, to be able to get a visa. Mr. Yan and his partner both have sons. One of the partner's son is in the top high school in China. It's a boarding school that's just a tiny number of Chinese students get in, so he's really bright. He wants to go to Stanford to school. So they want assets in the U.S. to protect them, because you never know what's going to happen in China. They want to have a visa. So he is very interested in a restaurant on Fifth Avenue, and B, First, he was talking about building a hotel, and one of the advantages of being there and seeing their construction site, I explained to him pretty quickly, you couldn't build a hotel, we would shut you down. So I think he has now changed in looking at buying a hotel. He was impacted over the last 12 months. His intention was to be here last April, and the hotel, the fourth hotel that he's built, he's got 4,000 multifamily units that he's built and 4 hotels. The last hotel didn't get open when he thought it would, and then the Chinese economy, but the sons will be coming to school pretty soon, so I anticipate him coming, and I still think he's a high probability of making a significant investment in the city of Naples.
You started that out by saying you would have brought it forward differently. How so?
Yeah, I think that probably, and again, used to managing your own businesses, maybe sometimes I forget that it's a little different being mayor. I probably would have been prudent to written up a trip report just for the record. But one, while I was gone, it was discussed at a GSAC meeting. One of the council members mentioned I wasn't there because I was in China. And then right after we came back, the next council meeting, it was brought up. So again, if it was an issue, why didn't you bring it up then? Why are you bringing it up in the middle of the campaign a year later? I think that's the real question.
One of the council members is sort of weighed in saying that this is an example that you're too cozy with the city manager. What's your relationship with Bill Moss?
Well, I have a great relationship with Bill Moss, and we talk every day. I'm in the office every day, and that's another, rub that I should be a full-time mayor. And I just did a little checking since from February 10th, from January 10th to February 10th. I spent 8.7 hours per day during the week on city business, and I spent 6.7 hours on Saturday and Sunday. That's an average during that month snapshot. Now realizing we've got campaign events going on and that sort of thing. And also 47 different functions in that month period of time. Look, that kind of gives you an idea. And I see you guys, so you know I'm out there. I don't see the other council members. I don't see the other mayoral candidates. I don't know how you know what's going on in your community unless you're out and not just talking to the few people you talk to. I talk to hundreds of people every year and weekly, and so I think that's important. But as far as being cozy with the city manager, I think he's a great city manager. By serving on the Florida League of Mayors, I get to talk to the other mayors, and he's regarded as one of the top city managers in the country. And so we talk every day. It's a strong city manager form of government, and I don't ask to make the decision, but we have a relationship and we bounce things off of one another. He's a little bit like Dolores. He asked me for my advice, but he didn't always follow it, which I think he should. But anyway, again, I think there's some jealousy and that sort of thing associated with this. But it is what it is. I'm proud of the relationship. Nothing that Bill Moss and I have ever done has been for anything but what's best for this city.
You mentioned that the mayor has no executive authority and everything's a team effort. How do you go about building that coalition, that 4-vote coalition you sometimes need? Well,
and it's the way that I'm used to doing it. Before, if you and I were going to do a deal before I call the press in, it's a done deal. Well, what makes it so difficult, and the thing I've had to get used to, is the sunshine law. And one of the things I do think we do a good job of is following sunshine. I never talk to a council member. So the thing that you have to do, you have to make a pitch and a presentation and convince 3 other council members, and hopefully more than 3. Typically, most things it's 6-1. We've got one council member that typically votes no regardless of what the issue is. But at any rate, to try to build a coalition And the way you do that, partially the way I do it, is with the staff report, because I'm involved setting the agenda. I look at the staff reports before the rest of the city council. If I see an issue there, you know, I suggest to Mr. Moss through his staff that maybe we need to phrase this a little bit differently and that sort of thing. So I try to give the council the information that they need to make the decision. And again, how does it fit in with the vision and the strategic direction for the city? You know, I think that's what's critical.
At the debate the other night, you said this may be a conflict of interest, but I'm going to weigh in on it anyway in regard to something involving the Naples players. Can you talk a little bit about how you're going to sort out your full-time job there in the government?
I have 2 full-time jobs, so and I work 70, 80 hours a week. But the fact is, and I defer to the city attorney, and that's the question. And there's been multiple issues, and because Florida law requires you to vote unless you have a conflict. So if there's any inkling of conflict, I'll ask Mr. Pritt, you know, is that something that I should vote on or abstain? And there's been very few items that he felt, but there's been a couple. But this is clearly one. I will not be voting on the issues associated with the Gulf Shore Playhouse, because I would trust that there'll probably be some issues if they're able to work out a deal with Florida Gulf Coast University for that corner. I would expect there could be some issues associated with the city, but even without asking Mr. Pritt, I think that's so clearly an issue. I will abstain for a potential conflict of interest on any of the issues associated with that. But I think it's good for the players. I think it's good for the city, because one of the things that as we go forward, part of what makes us unique is the cultural fabric that we have. You know, when I got here, there was no, I still call it the field, but there was no Artist Naples. We had the Naples players in a Quonset hut, that sort of thing, no Gulf Shore Playhouse, no theater zone. So as you look at in some cities, and one of the things, even when I'm on vacation, for instance, one of the areas that we like a lot is Niagara-on-the-Lake, the Canadian side of the Niagara Falls. And what they've done, the Shaw Film Festival, they call it, and the reason I like to go see the elected officials and the chamber folks when I'm up there, they're just the opposite. All their business is in the summer, and they die during the winter. And that's one of our challenges, is the seasonality. But they have built a tourist business around theater. It's professional theater, but that is their claim to fame. And I think as we continue to build the cultural arts, and we go from 350,000 where we are now of permanent population to 800,000 or 900,000, we're going to need more activities to get people to come here and to stay here.
How does, it almost seems like it's somewhat out of the city's hands, but how does the city cope with the amount of runoff coming into Naples Bay and in the Gulf also from Naples?
Okay, yeah, great question. And again, you hear this rhetoric either not encumbered by knowledge. So let me just give you a couple real quick figures. The city of Naples on average gets 54 inches of rain a year. Based on our approximately 14.4 square miles, that's 18.5 billion gallons of water. So where do you store 18.5 billion gallons of water to be able to put it in an ASR well? Well, the reality is you don't. Every city I've lived in, and unfortunately forever, and even Mother Nature, water always flows from the land into the surrounding water body. And the other issue is the beach outfalls. So the beach outfalls drain about 400 acres of land. 1 inch of rain over that area is about 10 million gallons. So we don't get 1 inch of rain spread over days. We get 3 or 4 inches at one time. So each inch of rain is 10 million gallons. So where do you store 30, 40 million gallons of water? because we can only put down about 1 million gallons per 24 hours in an ASR well because of the pressures and that sort of thing. So where do you store it? And as much as I would like to preclude putting the water into Naples Bay or into the Gulf, I don't know how to accomplish that, but I do know how to accomplish the Golden Gate Canal, and that's really the problem. The fresh water is the issue in Naples Bay. So when I first went on the Big Cypress Basin Board, we were dumping about 260 million gallons a day average of fresh water into the bay. Based on the modeling we did, it should be about 60 million gallons. And so we have been able to reduce that by weirs and other things that we've done as a result of the Big Cypress Basin and the South Florida Water Management District. We got that down to about 200 million. Commissioner Nance and I are working diligently on North Belle Meade. We think we can divert and rehydrate that area in the 60 to 100 million gallon range, and we're looking at some other projects. But make no bones about it, 10 years or so ago, we had 14 inches of rain. We had 1 billion gallons a day coming down the Golden Gate Canal. If we get 14 inches of rain in 24 hours, we're going to have a problem. And the bay was fresh almost to the Gulf. So that's the kind of situation. We have engineered an issue, and the issue with Naples Bay is not the city of Naples. The big producer other than stormwater from the city, we used to dump 6 million gallons of affluent water in the bay per day. Fortunately, council supported, and I was the lead on the alternative water system. Right now, we're using 27% less potable water per day than we were in the year 2000. We've got 1,500 meters, over 1,500 meters now hooked up on the alternative water. We don't dump a drop of that water into Naples Bay. This past January, because we didn't have our 4th ASR well, we did end up having to dump some water. But prior to that, for over 2 years, we didn't dump a drop of the affluent water, and we're using that for irrigation.
We've hit a half an hour here. Mayor, is there anything that we haven't covered here that you wanted to?
Yeah, I would like to address, and I respect you guys, and I know you're going to do what's right for the city of Naples, but I thought a letter to the editor today was interesting. It was more about the council races, and it says, others running for one of these seats, instead of talking about their own qualifications, choose to vilify the other candidates by impugning their integrity with unfounded accusations. These political tricks are unnecessary and should be saved for national office, not used in Naples. And I think that's a little bit of where I find myself. We wonder why good people don't run for political office. And I've been surprised at some of the things that have gone on, but it is what it is. But I appreciate what each of you have done for me as we've gotten things done in the city, and I respectfully request that you continue to endorse me as you have in the past.
Thank you.
Thank you.